passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! Vi i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. It's our post-preliminary round, pre-main round pod for the Women's EHF EURO 2024. Chris O'Reilly here with Alex Kulesh. I tell you who's not here in the main round, Alex. Iceland.
What are we doing here, Chris? What are we doing?
I'm going to have to actually give context to this because that juicy hot take was kept for our Patreon subscribers only at the end of the last podcast. So anyone who wasn't on Patreon didn't hear me reckon that Iceland had a chance against Germany on Tuesday evening. And hey, first 10 minutes, Alex, they had them on the ropes.
What are you doing here, Chris?
Yeah.
You're there watching every game. You're an expert in the field, been researching these teams, and you come out with a take that Iceland are going to beat Germany in the last round, and the score is 30-19.
I said they would make them panic, and I doubted Germany's ability to deal with the potential pressure that Iceland would bring upon them. And maybe I overestimated Iceland's ability to deal with a big game where there was qualification for the main round on the line. Gone were the days of just a few days ago where they were playing carefree and beautifully against the likes of Netherlands and Ukraine. And yeah, a 11-minute goalless spell midway through the first half put paid to those chances and to my until now fairly good ranking in the Home of Handball's match predictor app.
To be fair, I'm gonna put myself under a bus here as well, because earlier in the conversation again on our bonus podcast, I don't have to tell this to anyone. Oh, there might be a limited crowd that have listened to it, but I'm doing it in solidarity. I said Turkey, actually quite a solid team that might pose some problems for Sweden. And the score finished 47-19. A classic Natalie Hagman EHF Euros performance, 11 goals. She just loves ripping apart teams. She usually saves it for the World Championship, but there's a few weaker teams here, so she went to work. But we are in the main round now. Really, the excitement. Every game is going to be intense. Every match has something on the line. Generally, I think the better teams have gone through. I think the biggest omissions is probably Spain, who lost out to Poland. Have been knocked out. Quite disappointing for Spain, who have seemed to have kind of come back into their own former form. Not at the highest level, but they seem to be back. But good for Poland to get through. Otherwise, Romania somehow came back to go through in front of Czechia by beating Serbia, even though they were down by as much as 5 goals in the last 15 minutes. Went on a huge run to beat Serbia and qualify for the main round. Czechia will probably be disappointed. They'd looked good. They had some pretty strong performances from Jerzabkova, Cholova, and their goalkeeper, who has had a really good championship, but they're out. And Austria will be absolutely heartbroken, who lost 25-24 to Slovenia in that decisive game. And it is Slovenia who will march on through to the next round. They tend to do that at these championships, but Austria looked very good.
One other big team that missed out in the main round are bronze medalists from just 4 years ago, Croatia.
That's true.
Finishing bottom of their group behind Faroe Islands and losing to Switzerland, who are through. So joy for one of those co-hosts as well, which I think that was a really like a breakthrough performance for Switzerland. The team that 2 years ago kind of gave us a little glimpse of what might be with this team, this very young team for the most part, and a very confident performance. Like they led without much danger. There was a little bit of a comeback from Croatia at the start of the second half, having trailed 16-10 at the break, but not enough to really stress out the Swiss, who got their win on home court and march on to Vienna.
Very impressed by Switzerland so far in this competition. I think a player that's really impressed me is Tabea Schmidt, the line player, who plays for Copenhagen Handball. And she has been really impressive. 21 goals so far, right at the top of the goal scoring rankings. And she has this kind of fiery energy. She manages to almost lead this team from the pivot position, which is rare to see in handball. So, nice to see Switzerland in the main round. But the two groups are set. So, unfortunately for Switzerland, they get into main round group 2, which has Norway, Denmark, Netherlands, Slovenia, and Germany in it. Hard to see if hard to look past really Norway and Denmark in that group, but we'll see who can challenge them in there. In the other main round group, we have France, Hungary, Montenegro, all on 2 points. Romania, Sweden, Poland on 0. The exciting thing here is there's big games from the start in both of these groups.
Yes.
And I think the two biggest games are probably Montenegro, Hungary in that group 1. Both of those teams really looking to get that semi-final spot, and it's good to see that they're in a good position. And then Denmark, Norway kicking things off to really set the tone for that group. Which one of these teams will, essentially go through with that result, and which one might end up in a bit of a dogfight. So huge games coming up from the first round.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Group 2 first, because we do later on in the podcast have an interview with Zsofi Szemerey, the goalkeeper from Hungary, to talk about their journey. So we'll save the Hungary chat until after the interview maybe, but let's talk about Group 2 then, because, well, you said it there in one way. That's the group you actually don't want to be in, right? It's Group 1 it feels like a kind of a ironically, like a Scandinavian thing. It's a flat hierarchy. Anyone can beat anyone. But the group with more Scandinavian sides, Group 2, Norway and Denmark, they do seem to be in a league of their own. However, Netherlands are in there, and this is a team that I can't quite make my mind up on yet. And I think every time someone on this podcast gets excited about Netherlands, they tend to throw us under the bus and provide something that's not so amazing. We did, before the championship, Alex, kind of give a little bit of hype to the Dutch. You fancied Dione House here as a potential MVP. I was on the fence about maybe throwing them into the Final Four in my eyes. Are they good enough to get a win over one of the two in Denmark and Norway, do you reckon?
I think they are absolutely good enough to get a win over the two. But do they have the consistency to then not lose against the other teams in the group? That is the question. They're quite up and down. I have been really impressed by Dione Hauser, who I did tip. She's really stepped into a leadership role there. She can probably be be a little bit more efficient. We talked about that, but she does seem to have kind of the bit between her teeth, really kind of leading this team. And Larissa Nusser, who the Vipers Kristiansand playmaker, has been in good form, and she's only 24. Really her first championship where she is more of a focal point for the Netherlands. So this next generation is there for the Netherlands, and we just have to see what they're made of. Kind of difficult to judge them from the group. They did dispatch Germany fairly easily, and then Iceland and Ukraine being the other two games. It's just so hard to look past Denmark and Norway. It is just, those two teams are absolute machines. And it feels like Denmark are even more of a machine than ever, which has, we've criticized in the past at the highest level. You know, it feels like when they are in the biggest games against the likes of Norway and France, going for medals, we've just like, we want a star. We want something to come out. Right now for Denmark, they basically have such an even, the most democratic spread of goals I've seen. The top scorer is Emma Fries with 13 goals, and it basically goes down bit by bit throughout the squad. But, you know, in 7th place on their scoring rankings is Anna Mette Hansen with 8 goals. So this has been still this Jesper Jensen system, still pure kind of system above player. It's worked. In the group stage, they've made light work of each of the teams, and then, you know, they'll come up against Norway, and that's when system meets superstar, as always. And how much preparation have they put into games against Norway? I'd say yes.
Too much,
has
Alex.
Had many a sleepless night, including probably tonight before the game against Norway, and we'll just have to see. Something tells me this is one of those classic situations where Denmark are going to beat Norway in the group stage.
They'll beat them now, and then they'll face off again in the final, right? But that does kind of, it is quite important for them to get a victory already against Norway. If we're thinking about, it's a long main round group. It's 4 rounds of matches. A lot of room for teams to make mistakes, to drop points, and I think that's where, you mentioned there for the Netherlands, can they stay consistent throughout the next 8 days before what feels like their do or die match against Denmark? So as long as, Netherlands do their homework, they will have that basically quarter-final match against Denmark on the 11th of December. And almost no matter what Denmark to do, whether they beat Norway or not, if they get the win, it still doesn't mean their job is done, because they still basically have that quarter-final game against Netherlands at the end. So it's this one feels like a real like a long slog, whereas the other group, it's going to be 4 rounds of matches where things will fluctuate all the time. Here it feels like it's all, at the end of the day, just going to come down to one game between Denmark and Netherlands. Of course, if both manage to beat Norway, then that changes things a little bit. But I can't see Norway losing to both of them. I can see them losing to one of them, but not both of them.
I think you're right there. Just also, Norway had basically a full rest day in their last group game. Henny Rystad basically didn't play. Most of their bigger players didn't play. So I think Norway will be coming in fresh into this main round. Not to say that that's not the case for Denmark either, who have really spread out, again, with their goal scorers, but also with playing time. I do think, Henny, what can I say? What can I say apart from Henny Rystad is going to score a stupid amount of goals in this main round. But I think for Denmark, their goalkeepers have been pretty sensational so far, and
so have Netherlands. Jarret and Holte, man.
That's true. That is true.
Incredible. And Rinke Doindam also there to clean up. So I mean, it's whereas Norway were able to allow Katrina Lunde to go back home and take care of her kid for a few days before coming back for the main round. So it's very different approaches here, and I wouldn't argue with any of them.
Very funny. It does help if you have Sanders Alberg there to be your backup goalkeeper, but we just have to see how these games shape up. It's really difficult to know how that matchup is going to go between the top two teams. You know, they've had plenty of warm-up games between each other, and the record between Norway and Denmark stands at 17 Norway to Denmark. So,
either way, it is a group for the blockbusters, and I think that's what we can look forward to. In 3 of those 4 rounds, we're going to see basically a 3-way battle between them. And you know, Switzerland and Slovenia, I think, are there for the good times. Germany will fancy themselves as having some kind of chance. I've already basically ruled them out of the tournament a couple of days ago, so I'm not going to do that again. But I, still haven't seen enough from them to suggest that they're going to be there at the end of the day.
Which of those 3 teams do you think has the best chance of actually upsetting the top 3 teams in that group?
I think it is still Germany. Germany are quite have had some success against the Scandinavian teams every now and then. So I think they will make life difficult for one of them at some point. But whether it's enough to get the win, I don't think so. And I think Slovenia are not there yet. Now they've regressed since Anna Gross left, and there's no Omaregi as well. It's a team that were just about good enough to beat Austria, who haven't been in the running for anything over the last few years. So I think in that sense, this group is 2-tiered big time. But Germany are the one that's closest of the 3.
For me, I think Slovenia are the team that have that grit to potentially make one of these teams really sweat and get into a dogfight. They did lose 33-26 to Norway already. But again, that game was pretty close. Really, the 45th minute, there's only 3 goals in it. And that's when Norway took over. I think they've just had really, really great performances from some of their players. Chasa Stanko has been the top scorer in the competition. She has 24 goals in the 3 games so far. Goalkeepers have been in good form. They have some talent to make it a dogfight, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
Before we move on to our chat about Group 1, let's head into our interview for this podcast. And I had a chance to catch up with one of the many outstanding goalkeepers from these opening 6 days of the Euro, and maybe a bit of a surprise one in many people's eyes, in Zsofi Szemerey, who came into this tournament as probably the 3rd choice goalkeeper for Hungary, but she's had an exceptional tournament so far, a saving percentage at around 47 for the opening 3 games, and practically a match winner in the game against Sweden in the second half. I had a chance to speak to her about this tournament, how she's stepped up for the team, how she and a number of her teammates have made the big decision to move abroad in the last year or 2, and what it's like to be playing in a home championship where a medal is a potential end goal. I want to begin taking you back to a post-match interview you did after the Sweden game, right after the game.
Yeah.
And you were saying that the day before in training, that everything was going wrong, that nothing seemed to be right. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I think maybe this is the women's handball life. Maybe the coach know if before the match days we make a wrong trainings on the match we can win easy. So yeah, maybe he knows this. But yeah, on the trainings we was tiring a little bit because after the Swedish match we give everything's out and we get of course a lot of cheerings and everything, and this experience was a little bit too much for us, and we can sleep enough, and our level and power was so up. So we try to keep calm and keep going down again a little bit, but the most important we won. So
yeah, exactly, and that's kind of my point. Is quite interesting
yes.
that a tournament like this, that even after the Sweden game, you mentioned the training before not going well, but in the end of the day, it didn't really matter when it came to the game. Which is an incredible match, the win over Sweden. It's a few days ago now, but what kind of sticks in your mind when you think about?
I think nobody's waiting this result. And in the last 10 minutes, when I saw the result on the field, and I saw we are going with tangos, and oh my God, what we are doing now again? Yes, that was a so good feeling. And I think before the match when we are running inside and we start to make a warming up, and I'm feeling on the girls, and I'm feeling the cheerings and everything, and I felt okay, that will be our days, and we will just won.
The energy was amazing.
Yes,
as well. I mean,
yes.
From everyone.
And what we show outside, and everything was perfect on this day.
Yeah, I just want to talk about some of your teammates in that as well. I mean, you came in and had a fantastic second half performance. Fuzi Tavizi as well. She was incredible in defense.
Yes.
And the energy she showed as well. It feels like this team that has a lot of young players in it, quite a young squad overall, seems to be really maturing and kind of taking responsibility as well in a tournament like this. Is that how you feel within the group?
Yes. I think now in the team we have old girls and older girls and younger girls, but we are a very good mix, I think, and this is the most important, because if we can work together, we can reach our goals, and this is the most important, because if just one members can playing good, this isn't enough from France, from Norwegian. So on the good match, this isn't enough. But if you can play in a team and you can show this, and you can show outside they don't have a chance here, of course we can win.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about how the build-up was for the tournament, the weeks and the months leading up to it? Because, of course, there was the painful quarterfinal in the Olympics against Sweden, ironically. But, having a home tournament coming up and just a few months later, did that make it a little bit, not easier, but it gave you something to focus on again after such a painful time in Lille?
Yeah, of course, after the Olympic Games, that was a very hard time, but we don't have enough times to crying, because after directly the Olympic Games, we start the preparation with our team, with our club, because we have just 2 weeks, and after we start on the Champions League. So maybe this is inside now in ourselves, but we can be just better, because we learned from this, and this is very important. And on September we had a 1 week national team week, and that was hard for us a little bit, because every national team give just 1 week rest, and everybody is going to a holiday or somewhere to rest with the family. But we work together and we make a hard trainings, but when we meet together and when we can spoke a lot, everybody was so happy, and we are spoke a lot from this European Championship, because we know this is a good chance for us to reach our goals finally, and we work a lot of things, and we worked a lot from this, so now I'm really hope we can reach that.
And on a personal level, in the Olympics, you were, I guess, on a third goalkeeper. You came in for a little bit, but that, I guess, is a completely different experience to what you're going through right now. You've been brought in, basically, you've made yourself the number one, it seems, in between the posts. Maybe that's not for you to say.
Yeah, yes,
I can see it in your face that you don't want to commit to that. But at least on the outside, you've had a remarkable rise within the three goalkeepers, and of course it's such a strong goalkeeper unit with all three of you. Also with Blanca as the captain as well. Tell me a little bit about that kind of dynamic between you and your fellow goalkeepers.
I think we have three very good goalkeepers. Just we have a hard situation now because in this autumn we don't play enough in our clubs. But we always spoke a lot with our goalkeeper trainers from this, and with Vova, with our coach, and we are feeling they trust us, and this is the most important thing, because if we are feeling this trusting and we are feeling the girls trust us, we can be happy on the field, and if we are happy and if we happy what we can do, and this is not just our hobby, this is our life, and of course everybody's dreaming from the first position in the goalkeepers, and everybody want to reach that. But I think if I can say if somebody is not playing, just sitting on the bench or the tribune, they don't care this. We just want to win, and we hope somebody will have a good match, and we hope just we won this match, and after we reach our goals, and this is the most important, and nobody scared this.
You moved club over the summer, moving abroad for the first time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And it seems like there's quite a few players within the team who have made the decision to go outside of Hungary, which feels like a really strong decision as well for these players to kind of take a little bit more responsibility in their own career and maybe challenge themselves a little bit.
Yeah, maybe the biggest challenge.
Was that part of it for you?
Yes, of course, everybody wants to playing in the Champions League, and I don't know, maybe the first time when I'm talking with Manu, that was 5 or 6 years ago, so he always search me every year, but on this year I'm feeling if I don't moving now, after this year maybe I don't want to change. So I'm feeling now or never, and I moved. Of course, now it's a hard situation now because Cleo's coming, but she is a very good goalkeeper, and I try to learn from her a lot of things, and I hope after this European Championship I can give more minutes on the field.
How has it been, like in general, being part of a new setup in a club outside of Hungary, and a club full of so many international talents as well? I guess that also brings a different energy for training.
Yeah, everything's changed. The trainings, of course, the language is so hard, but we learned a lot with Vamos Petra, because we are always going to the French class every week, so we try to learn this language, but it's so hard. And of course in the cities, everything. So yeah, everything is so hard. But if you want to learn, and if you want to reach your new levels, and if you want to going high and high, you need to make this.
Yeah. And I think it feels like at least it's showing at this tournament that it's been the right decision. Right?
I hope I can continue this.
Yes.
Because in this group we had two easy match, but I hope we can continue this and we can show our good face, because what we do on the Swedish match, oh my God, I think nobody can win against us if we are showing this.
And you're heading into a main round group now, which seems very even among the 6 teams. That it's if you look at the other main round group, maybe you think about Norway and Denmark at a different level compared to the rest, but here it's like almost flat. Anyone can beat anyone else, which is a good situation, but also quite dangerous. what kind of person are you when you look at this group? Are you thinking already, okay, if we get this result against this team and try and get some points, then maybe we can make sure we're second or first, or do you not care?
I don't care, and I don't like these things. I don't like to see the numbers. I'm just always want to win, and if we won every match, we don't have a problems. Exactly. So yeah, I want to choose that.
That's the right attitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Zsofi. She said at the end of that she's not the kind of person to be counting points ahead of time and trying to figure out a route to the semi-final. If they win all 4 games, they're through. It's as simple as that. Will it be as simple as that, Alex?
It's a lie. Every single handball player at these tournaments is talking about routes to the final. As a team, they'll never admit it. To the media, they'll never admit it. But I'm certain that Hungary are looking at this game against Montenegro and saying to themselves, this is the game that is decisive for us. It helps that it's the first game.
Yes.
So you can't just say that, this is our only focus right now. Hungary, really, with that win against Sweden, they're just in such a good place. And to be honest, looking at the rivals like Romania and Poland, they're not at that level. They're not going to challenge Poland. They've done well. Kablinska has been really good, especially in that win against Spain, but just not at that level. Romania scraped through, and they don't have Niagu, so there's no chance that they'll even, really get a performance out of someone.
I don't know. I think Romania are going to be a big pain in the arse in this main round, I reckon. Also because they have a significant support as well coming over the border already for the preliminary round. I think that's going to stay on. I actually think they're better now without Niagu, which I think isn't that hot a take anymore, because I think there was a lot of we've had Adrian Costiou in the past come on the podcast and talk about like the weird kind of relationship between Niagu and the rest of the squad and the kind of influence that she had on them as kind of an inhibiting factor. You mentioned how well they did to come back in their games, and that was really a constant throughout the preliminary round. They were trailing by 5 against Czechia, came back and won it. They were trailing by 5 and I think scored 7 goals in a row against Montenegro in the first half before eventually losing that one. And again, they came from behind against Serbia to get the win. So there's some serious kind of ability, like grit in that team, which they don't have too many superstars or really any superstars in there, but they do have a squad full of players playing at a very solid level all the time. And I think that's kind of snuck up on us. The Romanian club handball has 3 teams in the Champions League. Not all of them are playing for those 3 teams, but they're all playing in a solid league. So it's not, there's not too much fat in that squad. It's pretty solid in there. And I think that was the key for them to get through, whereas, their opponents, Czechia, for that second place, relied on 8 players. So I think for the main round, that's going to mean it will have a bit of a knock-on effect, and they'll be able to make life difficult for some teams. I'm not saying they're going to go through, right? They are probably the 5th best team in the group, but I think they might take a point or 2 off some teams.
And I think that is probably possible in this group, just with the highest teams or the better teams in this group, not quite at the Denmark-Norway level of just pure efficiency. Even France are included in this. I think France are obviously a fantastic team, but they just they're not as much of a machine as Norway and Denmark. Romania they have some good backcourt shooters, which does help in women's handball. They're a little bit more old school, younger team that is probably, you're probably right. When they were losing to Serbia, I think I counted them out of the competition. They were 4 goals down with 20 minutes to go, and they did show grit and determination. Hopefully Basilu continues to impress. She's been good, but I think there's a little bit more there for her in this Romanian team.
This is the group of grit.
It is the group of grit.
So who's going to be the grittiest of all? We saw Sweden come back from that devastating loss to put in the most cold-blooded, heartless victory over Turkey and show that they're not going anywhere. I'm kind of in a little bit of the same mind I had about Iceland. Remember back in the men's Euro in January, not the women's team, but the men's the men's team, where they failed to really show up in the preliminary round. But as Aaron Palmerson said, there's 4 games in the main round, time to fucking rock and roll. They ended up not doing much. I'm kind of getting the same vibes out of Sweden here.
It's interesting, hard to judge. 2 very easy wins against North Macedonia and Turkey, and 1 quite comprehensive loss against Hungary, and like extremely comprehensive loss. You have to remember that the score in that game was 32-20 to Hungary on the 55th minute, and then Sweden scored the last 5 goals. So it was a devastating loss for Sweden. They do have Joanna Bunsen, who is probably like the best goalkeeper on form over the last while. Exclude Lunda from that because she's just an absolute alien. But her consistency is really good. But do you see Sweden beating France?
Beating France, yes, but then beating the rest of the teams, no. Sweden were a whisker away from beating France. They sent them to extra time in that Olympics a few months ago in the semi-final. So I would say Sweden, being a little bit outsiders here, they won't mind that. And France, I haven't quite made my mind up. I don't think I've seen enough of them in tricky situations, because even in that game against Spain where they got the win, it was like, it felt like they always knew they were going to win in the end. I think France come into this one the coldest of the teams. Like they absolutely smacked Poland out of it. So they have probably the most to do in order to get up to speed, which I think they're totally fine with. I don't know how it's going to go though. This it is really a 3-way race, I would say, between France, Hungary, and Montenegro to get the top 2 spots. Sweden will play their way in because they'll be they have a chance to beat Poland and Romania in the opening 2 games, and then it will feel like a massive game against France, which maybe will shake things up. I think we should check in on this one in a few days' time, Alex.
I do think it is always tough with this transition to the main round. Obviously, group matchups make it very difficult to judge. And then even, we talk about it many times that sometimes one group in the main round is much stronger than you think. But I think I am glad that there's some real challengers for those top 3 teams in this main round, and pretty confident that going into the semi-finals, it won't be a stroll for anyone. So it's shaping up nicely. I don't like the fact that there's men's Champions League games on at the same time.
And on that note, I need to wrap up this podcast because in about 10 minutes I'll be commentating on some men's Champions League games. So let's wrap it up. We'll definitely be back in a few days' time for an update on the women's main round. Thank you again to Zsofi Szemerey for the interview. Thank you, Alex. Thank you all for listening at home, and we'll catch you again soon. Goodbye.